You have a memory that you don't like to touch. It sits in the back of your mind, covered in a heavy mental dust sheet. Maybe it was 10 years ago on a highway at night, seeing headlights drift into your lane. Maybe it was a childhood fall from a height that should have broken you but didn't. Or maybe it was a sudden crushing pain in your chest that vanished as quickly as it arrived. You tell yourself stories about these moments. You call it luck. You call it a miracle. You tell your friends, I don't know how I survived that. The uncomfortable truth, mathematically speaking, is that you didn't. In the timeline you occupied 5 minutes before that event, you died. The headlights didn't swerve. The fall was fatal. The aneurysm ruptured. The laws of physics in that specific branch of reality followed their natural destructive course. But you are not here to remember the funeral. You are here, reading this, remembering the luck. This is the first proof, the near-miss statistical fluke. Probability is not a suggestion. It is a rigid framework. Every day, you navigate a minefield of micro-probabilities. The chance of a fatal traffic accident, a freak medical event, or a catastrophic mechanical failure is low for any given second, but over the course of a lifetime, the probability of 0 fatal interactions approaches impossibility. When you experience a near miss, you are witnessing the seam where 2 probabilities diverged. In the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, every quantum event with multiple possible outcomes actually results in all of them happening, each in a newly branching universe. Most people think of this in terms of subatomic particles, but you are made of subatomic particles. Your car is made of them. The drunk driver swerving toward you is made of them. When that car came toward you, the universe split. In branch A, the physics of momentum and mass resulted in a collision. Your biology ceased. Your consciousness, dependent on that biology, had nowhere to sit. But in branch B, a branch with a probability of perhaps only 0.00001%, the driver sneezed, twitched the wheel, and missed you by an inch. Here is the terrifying mechanic of consciousness. You cannot experience non-existence. It is a logical impossibility. You cannot be dead. Therefore, your subjective awareness can only continue along the branch where the biology supports it. When branch A resulted in death, your conscious stream didn't end. It was simply filtered out of that timeline. The only version of you that remained capable of observation was the one in branch B. You felt a rush of adrenaline. You pulled over to the side of the road, shaking, hyperventilating, thinking, I can't believe I'm alive. You aren't alive in the way you think. You are simply the geometric remainder. You are the statistical fluke that survived the filter. That memory of the near miss is not a badge of survival. It is a tombstone for the version of you that didn't make the jump. You left a corpse behind in a timeline that is just as real as this one, where your family is currently mourning you, while you sit here, unaware that you are a ghost in their history.
The Mandela effect has been trained to dismiss the Mandela effect as a quirk of human psychology, false memory syndrome, or confabulation. We are told that the human brain is a faulty hard drive that rewrites data to fit social expectations. Millions of people remember a cornucopia on the Fruit of the Loom logo that never existed. Millions remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Millions remember a movie called Shazam starring a genie. If we view reality through the lens of quantum immortality and timeline shifting, these aren't memory errors. They're data corruption artifacts caused by migration. Think of your consciousness as a file being transferred from one server to another. When you died in your previous timeline, perhaps in a global catastrophe or a personal accident that reset a large portion of the local observer field, your consciousness shifted to the nearest available save-state timeline. This new timeline, timeline B, is 99.9% identical to your original timeline A. The physics are the same, your family is the same, your job is the same. But the seed generation of this timeline had microscopic variances. In timeline B, the graphic designer for a fruit company chose a different clip art image in 1975. In timeline B, a political prisoner was released instead of executing a prison sentence. These details are irrelevant to your immediate survival, so the migration algorithm doesn't flag them as conflicts. However, your memory, the cache of your consciousness, still holds the data from timeline A. You arrive in this new reality carrying files that no longer match the system directory. When you encounter the discrepancy, you feel a distinct cognitive dissonance. You know it was different. You recall the texture of the memory, the specific color, the context. That certainty isn't arrogance, it's evidence. The skeptics ask, why are the differences always so trivial? Why is it always logos and movie quotes? This is actually consistent with the theory. If the differences were major, if the sky was green or gravity was reversed, your consciousness wouldn't be able to integrate. The nearest available branch must be compatible with your sanity and your biological history. You only slide into timelines that are nearly indistinguishable from your origin point. The trivial differences are the only ones that slip through the net because they don't break the continuity of your existence. The Mandela effect is not about bad memory. It's the scarring left over from a traumatic timeline merge. It's proof that you are not native to this version of Earth. You are a refugee from a timeline that likely no longer exists, or one where you are no longer present. The more strong Mandela effects you experience, the more times you have likely died and respawned, accumulating these small corrupted data packets like scratches on a disk.
To understand why you can't die, we have to look at the fundamental engine of reality, the observation. The double-slit experiment is the most famous demonstration of quantum weirdness. When you fire particles at a barrier with two slits, they behave like waves, creating an interference pattern. But the moment you place a detector to see which slit the particle goes through, it stops behaving like a wave and behaves like a solid bullet. The act of observation changes the past and the nature of the particle. But there is a more advanced version of this experiment called the delayed choice quantum eraser. It implies something even more disturbing. The future can influence the past. Decisions made after a particle has passed through the slits determine how it did pass through the slits. Reality creates a consistent narrative to ensure the observer sees something logical. Apply this to the macro scale of your life. This is the double-slit future bias. The universe you perceive is not a static stage, it is a render dependent on your observation. If the simulation requires an observer to render the data, then the simulation prioritizes the continued existence of that observer. The future where you die creates a paradox. If the observer ceases, the data stops being rendered. Therefore, the wave function of your life collapses retroactively to ensure a path where the observer continues. This manifests as impossible luck or sudden inexplicable changes in your environment. Have you ever dropped a glass, watched it fall, and then somehow caught it in a way that defied your own reaction time? Or have you ever been in a situation where a physical object, a falling branch, a careening vehicle, seemed to glitch or move in a way that physics shouldn't allow just to miss you? This is the future bias at work. The system is calculating the trajectory that leads to your death, zero observation, and the trajectory that leads to your survival, continued observation. Because zero observation crashes the local instance of reality relative to you, the system effectively discards that data. It forces the particle, or the car, or the bullet into the wave state that bends around you. You are the particle in the double-slit experiment. As long as you are observing, the universe is forced to present you with a reality where you are capable of observing. You are trapping the universe in a corner. It must keep you alive, because without you, this specific subjective universe dissolves. You are not surviving because you are skilled. You are surviving because the code requires a user to witness the graphics. Many worlds responding. This is the mathematical heart of the theory, often referred to as quantum suicide, a thought experiment proposed by physicists like Max Tegmark. It strips away the mysticism and leaves us with cold, hard logic. Imagine a box. Inside the box is a quantum trigger, a radioactive atom with a 50% chance of decaying within a set minute. If it decays, it triggers a vial of poison gas that kills you instantly and painlessly. If it doesn't decay, you hear a click. You enter the box. You close the door. In the traditional view, you have a 50-50 chance of living. But in the many worlds interpretation, the universe splits. Universe A, the atom decays, the gas releases, you die. Universe B, the atom does not decay, you hear a click, you live. From the perspective of an observer outside the box, you have a 50% chance of dying. They will eventually open the box and find a body. But from your perspective, the perspective from inside the box, you can only experience the timeline where you retain consciousness. You wait for the minute to pass. You hear a click. Lucky, you think. You try it again. The universe splits again. Universe A2, you die. Universe B2, you live. You hear a click. You can run this experiment 10 times, 100 times, 1,000,000 times. In the vast majority of branching universes, you are dead. There are billions of timelines where your friends are grieving, where your body is being examined, where your funeral is being held. But to you, the experiment will seem broken. You will hear click, click, click forever. You will become statistically impossible, a creature of infinite luck, trapped in the single razor-thin slice of probability where the atom never decays. Now take this out of the box and apply it to life. We are constantly running the quantum suicide experiment. Every time you cross the streak, eat food, or simply sleep, where thousands of people die of aneurysms or heart failure, you are pulling the trigger. The math implies a horrific conclusion: subjective immortality. You will never experience the moment of your own death. You might see others die, you will attend funerals, you will watch the world age and rot around you. But when your turn comes, when the cancer becomes terminal, when the car hits the wall, you will simply shift. You will find yourself in the 0.00001% timeline where the diagnosis was wrong, where the doctor says it's a miracle remission, or where the car airbag deployed perfectly. You are condemned to live. As you age, the probability of survival shrinks, forcing you into increasingly bizarre and outlier timelines, worlds where medical technology advances just in time to save you, or where you survive conditions that leave you fundamentally changed, but conscious. You are the only thing in your universe that cannot leave.
We often hear survivors of car crashes, shootings, or catastrophic falls say the same thing. Time slowed down. It felt like I was moving underwater. I could see the individual rotations of the tire. Neuroscience explains this as tachypsychia, a distortion of time perception induced by dopamine and norepinephrine. The brain enters a hyper-focus mode, writing memories at a higher density, which makes the event feel longer when recalled. That is the materialistic explanation. But the quantum immortality explanation offers a different odd why. Time dilation is not just a memory trick, it is a processing lag. Imagine your consciousness is a complex software running on the hardware of the universe. When a fatal event approaches, the system encounters a critical error: subject termination imminent. To prevent the cessation of the observer, as discussed in the safety net, the system must search for a viable timeline to migrate your consciousness into. This search requires computational resources. The slow motion you experience is the result of your consciousness buffering. The interface between your mind and reality slows down because the system is frantically scanning adjacent probabilities for a survival branch. It is simulating millions of outcomes in microseconds to find the one where you don't die. You see the glass shattering slowly because you are effectively in a loading screen. Your brain is overclocking, disengaging from the standard flow of time to facilitate the jump. The more inevitable the death, the slower time must move to find the escape route. This explains why people in these states often report a strange sense of calm or detachment. It's the observer mode. You are temporarily pulled out of the driver's seat while the navigation system reroutes. If you have ever felt time grind to a halt during an accident, you are likely in the process of dying in your primary timeline. The you that landed on the ground safe and sound is the result of that high-speed search for a new host reality. You didn't just survive a crash, you survived a timeline purge.
There is a specific physical sensation that follows a brush with death. It isn't just relief, it's a somatic hum, a vibration in the teeth, a ringing in the ears that isn't quite tinnitus, a feeling that gravity is pulling slightly too hard or not hard enough. Survivors often describe feeling floaty or unreal for hours or days after the event. They look at their hands and feel like they belong to a stranger. They look at their bedroom and it feels like a set on a stage. Clinical psychology calls this derealization or depersonalization, a defense mechanism of the brain to distance itself from trauma. But let's look at the data through our sub-niche lens. This is the physical side effect of responding. When an electron jumps energy levels, a quantum leap, it absorbs or emits a photon. Energy is exchanged. If your consciousness jumps from timeline A to timeline B, there must be an energetic cost. You are fusing two disparate quantum states. The hum you feel is the resonance of that integration. You are literally vibrating at a slightly different frequency than you were 10 minutes ago. Your consciousness is adjusting to a new biological vessel that is 99.9% identical, but not your original vessel. The neural pathways are slightly different. The chemical balance is slightly different.
This respond feeling often comes with a subtle shift in personality or taste. People who survive near-death experiences often report sudden changes in preferences. They suddenly hate a food they used to love, or they gain an interest in a subject they previously found boring. Skeptics say this is the psychological impact of a life-changing event. We say it's a merge conflict. You have inherited the body of a version of you that already liked that food or already had that interest. You are driving a rental car that looks like your car, but the seat is adjusted differently, and the radio stations are saved to presets you don't remember setting. That unreal feeling is the truest sensation you will ever have. It is the realization that the world is mutable, and you are just a signal passing through it. You feel like an imposter because in this specific timeline, you are one.
Finally, we arrive at the most disturbing proof, the observer safety net. This combines the anthropic principle with simulation theory. The anthropic principle states that we observe the universe to be the way it is because if it were different, we wouldn't be here to observe it. It's a tautology. But if we live in a simulation, a constructed reality designed for experience, then the player is the most valuable asset. In video game design, there are fail-safes. If a player falls through the geometry of the map, the game doesn't crash. It teleports the player back to the nearest safe coordinates. If a player gets stuck in a wall, the game nudges them out. The game engine prioritizes continuity of play over realistic physics. Your life shows signs of these nudges. Think about the times you have been in situations that should have spiraled into ruin, financial ruin, social ruin, or physical ruin, and yet at the last second a solution appeared, a check arrived, a person called, a chance meeting solved the problem. We call it divine intervention or luck, but look at it as a safety net. The simulation cannot allow its only player to stop playing. If you die, the game ends. If you end up in a situation where you are permanently incapacitated and can no longer generate meaningful data or entertainment for the simulators, the game becomes stagnant. Therefore, the reality you inhabit is rigged in your favor. Not to make you happy. The simulation doesn't care about your happiness. It cares about your engagement, but to keep you active. This is why rock bottom often triggers a bounce. The system detects that the narrative is terminating and injects a new variable to keep the observer observing. This is the ultimate proof of solipsism via quantum mechanics. You might notice that while you seem to have a safety net, others do not. You see people die. You see people ruin their lives and never recover. You see tragedy strike others without mercy. This reinforces the terrifying isolation of the theory. They are non-player characters, NPCs. Their deaths are part of your narrative. They can die to provide you with grief or lessons or context, but you cannot die. The safety net only applies to the POV character. The fact that you are still here, despite the statistical improbability of your survival up to this point, despite the biological fragility of the human body, is evidence that the net is underneath you right now. You are being kept in the game. You are being forced to watch the show. And no matter how close you get to the edge, the invisible wall will always bounce you back to the center of the map. You have died before. You just aren't allowed to know it. And you will die again and again and again, waking up each time with nothing but a headache, a fake memory of a near miss, and a lingering suspicion that the world looks